Welcome to The Bridge. We are a show that connects East and West. My name is Jason. I'm from sunny California, now living in beautiful Beijing. Today with me is Alex.
Hello, everybody. This is Alex Shi. I am proudly representing the northeast of China, and I'm also here in the same room with Jason today, speaking to all of you from Beijing.
Today's guest is a triple threat, at least, Fantwan, heralding from the UK. Fantwan has lived in China since 2018. He is a boxer of some note, and I've seen him surrounded by hundreds of fans in person in headline fights and mixing music at multiple venues. He's a DJ at locations across Beijing, including Dada, Jiaodai, BBB, Nugget, and too many more to mention. He's currently working with a not-for-profit which promotes sustainability practices through educational programs. Welcome to the show, Fantwan.
Good
Welcome.
to be here. Thank
so
you.
many hats
what
to
an
wear.
introduction. Wow. Okay, I'll take that. Thank
You're
you.
always talking about slash culture,
Yes.
right? And that's
Oh.
kind of
Do you-
like what you're doing. You have just many, many things you're engaged
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, I am a DJ slash boxer slash
I like to say
Bass player.
bass player.
jack of all trades, master of none.
Not a bad
So,
thing,
yeah,
I would say.
Yeah. Very average at all of them. But average at a lot of stuff. So, yeah.
Well, we want to learn a little bit more about you. I know you are from London, but could you tell us a little bit about your neighborhood? Where are you from?
Good question. So, I guess I can answer that with a bit more accuracy, having been back home for 4 months and came back a couple of weeks ago. So, I'm from a place called Kentish Town in northwest London. It's in the borough of Camden. Camden has a reputation for being a bit of a stoner's paradise, hippie central, if you will. But over time, it's kind of become a bit more gentrified, I suppose. Famous places in Camden, I guess, are Hampstead Heath. I'm talking to you like you know what that is.
Wait.
Are you nuts?
Like,
Yeah.
smiling.
Yeah.
Arsenal Football Club is not too far away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Amy Winehouse is from Camden.
Okay. Now
Washington.
that makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I was born in a hospital not too far away from Kentish Town. And then I officially moved to that area when I was like 5. And I more or less grew up there.
So, in 2018, you decided to move to China.
Indeed. Yeah.
And what led you to that decision?
Good question. So let's rewind to 2008. Before I'd go to university and give geology a try.
Wow.
And I don't know how, but managed to leave with a degree. And then that ended up being my career for a few years.
Wow.
I was a geologist. I worked on an oil rig.
Wow.
Not so much for the job
So many
itself.
different things.
It was for the lifestyle. I liked the idea of having...
That's a very poetic way to describe your job.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. I mean, if you knew what I did on my time off, then I think it wouldn't be as poetic. But yeah, I would work for like 2-3 weeks at a stretch and then have 2 to 3 weeks off.
Wow.
Which is
Wow.
So you like flown in on a helicopter or something?
Yeah. So it's from London to Aberdeen.
Jason, have you been on a helicopter? Have you been in a because you can't stand up
I've
in
seen
a helicopter.
helicopters.
No. You cannot,
Sometimes
yeah.
I was living in Wuhan and there was a
Okay.
helicopter in the hospital and I would see it and think, wow,
But
that's
have
cool.
you never been in one?
No, I've never even touched one. That's pretty
Oh,
cool. That's
yeah,
really
yeah,
yeah.
something.
I think the extreme thing, to be honest, about the whole helicopter thing was the training you have to take to be on one.
To just
just
be a
be-
passenger.
Yeah, so it's
Oh.
like basically, I suppose, in case the S word hits the fan, you need to know what to do in case.
Well, how do we survive a helicopter
Yeah,
crash?
what's the
Yeah,
biggest
yeah.
no-no when if you're ever
So
so lucky on a helicopter?
funny enough,
the blades.
actually, there's like a kind of seat etiquette because your survival chance or your survival rate of escaping from a helicopter that's in the sea is reduced drastically if you don't sit next to a window. So
Don't
there's
take the middle seat.
Yeah.
basically,
Wow.
yeah. But the training involved going into like a replica helicopter, which is kind of suspended above a 6-7 meter deep pool.
This sounds like NASA training.
I
They
suppose
dumped you into
They
the
do. They do a total of 6 times, and the last 2 times they turn this replica helicopter upside down. This is whilst you're like seatbelted into a
And you're-
chair.
How long do you stay in that position?
Well, I mean, like the whole thing was supposed to be a few seconds, but I think in my case, it was a bit longer.
Are there gentlemen, ladies down there with like snorkels ready to save you in case you don't know what to do?
In case, yeah.
That's insane.
That is insane.
So you're supposed to do that every 4 years. And as you can imagine.
Is this why you left geology?
I was about to say. At one of those 4-year marks, I thought to myself,
I'm moving to China.
this is enough.
And I've never seen a swimming pool the same way since then.
So, wait, is it related, your decision to move to China, related to your decision to leave geology?
So I'm going off tangent here, sorry. Fast forward a few years to 2016, 2017. So anyone who worked in oil and gas would know that at that time, there was a massive oil recession, essentially. So loads of sort of oil-backed economies, their economies tanked. Boring story, but Saudi Arabia at the time flooded the oil market with cheap oil. And the price of oil dropped drastically. And in the process, lots of people lost their jobs, loads of companies folded, included mine. And I was made redundant. And then I thought to myself, let's just roll the dice here. Let's just see what happens. Give China a try. It's like the most different thing to what you're doing now, or anyone that I knew at the time for that matter. And it worked out. Yeah, it's been an awesome time since I moved here. And
You know, I'd like to actually change I want to add a question because now I'm remembering that you mentioned this one time before. The price of oils is rather high.
No, it is, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that's going to continue into the future? Since we have an expert here.
I know. We don't get to ask this question every day.
I suppose the reason why that is a lot of tension in Ukraine stuff. And I think Putin...
So if that conflict subsides, the price of oil might come down later.
Yeah.
So before you came to China, what did you know about China?
Zilch.
So
actually,
what were your first couple weeks like? Were you shocked by anything? Did anything surprise you?
So I guess coming from London, unfortunately, you have this like snobbish like attitude. About
so it is true.
Yeah. Which is, there's a lot of fact in that. And so, gone to quite a few countries in Europe, naturally compared cities, and kind of go back home thinking that there's no London, you know. But going to Beijing, I can remember those first like initial weeks, and that kind of buzz and excitement that you get from. Yeah, an urban dwelling place, as it's put. I got that from Beijing, yeah. And then I guess off the back of that, I could really see myself there for an extended time.
So wait, your first couple weeks, you'd already decided, I'm going to live here.
I mean, like, I guess when I first came, it was initially going to be a 6-month period.
I think this is going to be, sorry to interrupt, but I think this is going to be a challenge for Jason and I, for every single guest we have on the show.
Yeah.
The challenge is to find one person who didn't think that thought when they first came to China. Everybody's like, this is going to be 6 months. This is going to be a year.
I usually get the year. Yeah, I'm going to do 1 year in China, and then I'm traveling all over the world. And then they just, 10 years later, one more year.
They're on the bridge.
By the time you know it,
exactly. They're on the bridge, right, exactly.
Just when I thought I was out, they dragged me.
Well, certainly, even traveling around Europe from the UK, China must be a significant difference. So were there things that you noticed in the first month being here that you were like, well, that's really different?
Suppose.
Well, did you come to Beijing?
Yeah, I did. Like, I don't want to say I was warned, but I was just given like a bit of a heads up that is not as ethnically diverse as London. And so coming to China, that wasn't exactly like something that shocked me. You know, it was just, okay, well, you're one of not that many foreigners here. But the thing is, there is no like animosity or bad vibes being in that situation. I can imagine being one of very few foreigners in many other parts of the world comes with a little bit of risk.
Of course.
And I think that would be the case everywhere, China included. But at no point have I ever felt like endangered or like, you know.
It's more like curiosity.
Yeah.
How would you
Yeah,
describe
yeah,
it? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I think you smashed it. That is the word I'd use, curiosity. Yeah. So it's more of a kind of, I want to know more about this odd, unique person that I'm seeing in front of me.
I get a lot of folks that I know, they say people take pictures of them in public. Do you get a lot of that?
Do you know, my first, like, maybe year, 8-9 months, yeah. And then I think after a while, you kind of give off a vibe that, like, I'm not into that. I'm just one of you guys. And I think off the back of that, then no one really cares about taking pictures.
Interesting. So your attitude is actually...
I think so,
It's like you send that
That's
energy out to the
interesting.
universe
That's
and
very
it gets reciprocated.
Because I think those first, like, 5 or 6 months or so, you kind of give off this vibe, this energy of being mystified by anything that's around you. And naturally, people pick up on that and maybe become mystified in you, or like just how odd you are sticking out. But I think after like, a few
Law
months,
of attraction kind of thing.
you're just sitting on the subway, you know, you're just kind of frustrated with the long commute as much as everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate right now. I can walk to work in 5 minutes.
Nice.
Oh, stop making me
It is so amazing. Actually, I think it's more like 4 minutes. And it's very lovely. There are ginkgo trees on the way too.
Oh wow! Oh, it is a good season to appreciate the ginkgo tree leaves.
You mentioned that you have traveled around China before. You one time said in a previous interview I had with you for a vlog that China is not a monolith. So I wanted to know a little bit about your travels in China.
This is true. I guess the first thing I'd say regarding that is thinking that my Chinese is okay, and then leaving Beijing and realizing no, it's not. And so I suppose the difference in dialects between all the different provinces, that's one thing that kind of struck at me.
Where have you actually been? Like, what
Okay.
place, what city?
Let's have a city.
List.
Yes.
Okay. So let's
I love
start
the
off
list.
in the north, I suppose.
What part of the north? Northeast.
I'm gonna kind of expand out of Beijing. So Beijing, obviously, Tianjin, I suppose. Harbin,
Ooh.
北戴河, Qinhuangdao, Datong.
That.
Now I always mix this up. Datong is in Shanxi or
Yes.
Shanxi. Okay.
Shanxi.
Okay.
I have to defer to you.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm the expert.
Yes, one of us is from here.
Ningxia.
Okay. So that's
Inner-
going more west.
Yeah. Inner Mongolia, back up north again.
Speaking like a true
He's been to more
geologist.
places than
Yeah.
me. I think you've been to more places than me, and you haven't even finished your list.
I just hope I remember the whole thing. And not
Wow.
that there's that many. Shanghai, Suzhou,
Okay.
Hainan, Chongqing, Sichuan, of course. There were a couple of more. Yeah, there's some more.
Wow.
Did you have the spicy hot pot when you were in Sichuan?
I did.
Did you like it? Did you like it?
Big
Gotta
fan.
ask.
Yeah.
I recently discovered that as a Chinese person.
Yeah.
I've always been having northern style hot pot.
Mm.
We went to this one restaurant that has been kind of particularly popular in northern cities. Changed my whole idea about hot pot, and I never understood. Yeah, I never understood when people from Chongqing and Sichuan are saying, "Oh, you know, this Mongolian style hot pot is nothing." I used to really.
You mean you tried the hot stuff?
Yes, I used to really be like, you know, what's the big deal? It's food boiled in hot soup. How different can it be? And I tried that hot pot, and I was like, I officially take back what I said about Chongqing hot pot before.
Yeah.
It's very addictive. It's
Levels.
very, very good.
I've actually come to the decision. I've never been to Sichuan.
Okay.
That when I go, I'm not going to try the hot. I think
I would love to put money on this bet that you will.
the last few times I've been to hot pot, I've realized before I felt like I had something to prove culturally, like I'm in a hot pot place, I need to have like spicy hot pot or whatever.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I want to enjoy my life the way I'm just getting old and set in my ways. I don't enjoy my stomach burning, and if I go to Sichuan, I'll be like, please give me the mild.
The sesame oil will help you.
Oh, so okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Do you know those like Sichuan peppercorns?
Yes.
Right, and I've become like addicted to those.
I was about to say like this
Yeah.
one thing that I'm not getting used to yet.
Are these the spicy
numbing-
kind?
the
The
numbing,
numbing.
yeah,
kind.
yeah. So it's not like a kind of like spice that is unbearable. It's just like this weird tingling sensation in the tongue.
Yeah.
Like it's I don't mind it.
Do you have that in Beijing too?
I suppose so. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I love how like everything we talk about is eventually gonna come back to food.
Oh yeah.
That is true. I think about that often. That we end up talking about food quite a lot.
Yeah,
see.
on the
Yeah.
show particularly.
Yeah, yeah.
That being said, what's the let me say weirdest food you tried? And I
Weirdest.
just reminded myself of one other place I've been to.
Well,
Dalian.
I had it when my first 6 months here. I didn't know how to read Chinese at all, so
Okay.
I couldn't read the menu whatsoever. And I was just looking at pictures, and it looked like beef. It turned out to be stomach.
Oh.
So I was like, okay, I'll give this a try. After a few bites, I really couldn't do it, so I didn't
Okay.
finish.
Okay.
So I was
Do you
just,
eat that now still?
No,
No? Oh.
no.
I think
Okay.
the reason why I just remembered Dalian is linking that to strange foods. I tried starfish.
Starfish.
Yeah.
What?
Wow, I didn't know you
Yeah,
could
yeah,
eat starfish.
yeah.
I thought they were just gonna be
You ate Patrick.
ornaments.
I did. Sorry. Sorry, buddy. Mhm. But yeah. That being said, I'm not even sure if that's like a local delicacy or if it's just who wants to buy this and eat it.
Yeah, I think
And-
you're the first person that
Yeah.
I heard who tried to eat starfish.
Okay.
Well, I think
Maybe I
they
wasn't supposed
do
to eat
that-
it.
We will fact check this and see if people
Indeed.
actually.
They
Cook
do
it.
that in Beijing where they eat scorpion, but it's only
Yeah.
for tourists.
Yeah.
They-
I tried scorpion in my first week here.
Yeah,
as
yeah. A
well.
lot of people, right when they arrive, you're
But
like,
it's deep
oh,
fried, right? It's just
Yeah.
really,
There's nothing on
do
it.
regular
It's
folks just sit around eating scorpion? Or
we
is
don't
it, it's a
sneak
tourist thing?
out to eat.
Yeah, yeah. No,
scorpions
I've never
there.
seen normal people. It's usually tourists are like, I'm eating scorpion in
Yeah.
Beijing.
In
I was that
Beijing, that's a
guy. That
Beijing
was me.
local food. No, it's
That
not.
was, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you've decided to make Beijing your home. You know, many years
Yeah.
later, you're still
Yeah,
here in
yeah, yeah.
Beijing. Is that just because you made friends, or because you like the city, or
I guess it's all of those. My work situation has really accommodated me to explore all those hobbies that we listed before. Got a good group of friends here. My community, the area that I live in, I haven't moved since I've been here, actually.
Oh wow!
wow,
That's,
the same apartment?
Yeah.
And where?
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
part of the city is that?
So that's Sanitwar. So not too far away from the embassies.
Neighbors.
Okay. Singapore.
See, yes, you go
I
out
used to
and
be-
perform in clubs. You go out and perform in clubs. You both live
I
in San
can't
Miguel.
believe
That's
I've
right,
been
yeah.
living in that neighborhood for 4 years,
Okay.
almost 4 years. Never run into you.
Indeed. Do you frequent Paddy's by any
Yes,
chance?
we do our Tuesday
Yeah,
open
comedy.
mics
Yeah.
there
Comedy.
every
Okay.
Tuesday.
Okay. I'm not a big fan of that place.
Did you come to Nick's birthday party a couple years ago?
I would have, yeah. Made
Because
a cameo,
she-
I think.
Performed
Because I've never seen you before.
at that.
I mean, it would be really awkward if you had shown up to Nick's thing and be like, I don't remember your performance.
Future
That
guest
would
of
be
the
worse.
show, Nick Longho. So you were a
Yeah.
boxer. How did you get into that? Was that something you did in London, or is that something
This
you
is
picked up
something
here?
I did back in, not London, in Manchester. So my uni days. And the reason I got into it at first was as an asthmatic. I figured,
Really?
let me just do something to kind of, boost my cardio. Really into football at the time. So it was supposed to be just fitness. That was the original plan. And then I think I had a bit of a knack for it, I think. And I got invited to spar. And typically sparring is kind of, like you were saying before the show started, practice fighting, going at 70%-ish. And I guess my willingness to do it kind of, struck the coach as something as, a characteristic that's worth developing.
But you're also pretty tall and pretty well built. So.
Is that good or bad for boxing?
And that being said, all my teammates,
reach.
I guess, would say, yeah, you have like freakishly long arms, and that might come to your benefit. And in the boxing, I try and use that as one of my key tactics.
I think a
basically.
lot of people outside of China will be very surprised that boxing is something that happens in Beijing and then in China. So could you tell us a little bit about Can you tell us a little bit about the scene?
Now, I might be wrong here, but I think that after 2020, obviously quarantine took the world and sporting events kind of subsided. And one of the few sporting events that could take place were combat sports because they don't require a crowd necessarily, and obviously it's just two people as opposed to like whole teams and stuff. And I think off the back of that, the interests grew exponentially.
Really?
I think. Yeah.
I do have a friend who's a female friend from Dongbei. She's from Shenyang. Very tall girl as well, interesting enough. She, for some reason, decided to take on not boxing, but Muay Thai. She has been, it's like a drug for her. She goes every day. And she says, it's so exhausting. But if I don't go back the next day, I feel like my soul is missing. And she's been trying to get me to go. All I can say is good luck. I am not going to, risk my life and other people's lives.
I say, like, I've said this quite a few times. I know, like, boxing doesn't really have the mysticism of, like, East Asian martial art, like Kung Fu or something like that. But it is still very much a martial art, I think. And to kind of double down on what your friend said, I think there is, like, a spiritual element to it, actually. I think that idea of, like, doing something that occupies your attention 101%. There is no way you're distracted by something else. And like it's a solo sport. There really is a sense of like developing. And whereas obviously, you can set targets for yourself, just like you can in anything. But I feel that in martial arts, you can never perfect it. You can always seek improvement, regardless of how high a level you are. And that's one of the reasons why I enjoy it, I find.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how many venues are there to actually go do boxing? Are these gyms or are there actual like arenas?
I guess one of the biggest chains would be like a gym brand called CTC. And they essentially own quite a few different combat sport gyms around Beijing. They frequently put events on as well. And it looks like over the last few years, those events have just grown and grown and grown. Yeah. And with that has become like people's interest in the sport as well.
I've heard of this thing, and I think I personally know maybe 2 or 3 girls that is competing the red word. The Shuangjing Showdown.
Yeah.
Is that apparently for people who box, that's like a one of the biggest local events they could be involved in.
Yeah. The last one was in April, I think.
Oh, they had one this year?
They had one this year. Yeah, unfortunately, couldn't participate. My hand was busted up at the time. But I was DJing instead. So
I think I saw you at something called Fight Club.
Yeah.
And there was 300 people there. I came with cameras. And
First rule, Fight Club.
I wanted to take pictures. By the time there were like 5 or 6 fights in a row before your fight.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even get up to take pictures because they were like so rammed around as they call the net. What's that?
The ring.
The ring.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So
it's
how little I
ironic,
know about
it
boxing.
doesn't actually have like a ring shape. It's a square.
Yeah.
So why it's
The
called a
square ring.
Yeah.
But I was like holding my camera over the crowd as well as I could, trying desperately to take pictures, but because there was keen interest. And I think you were the
last
featured
one, I think. Yeah.
fight at that
Yeah.
event.
Not
And
so
you
much.
won.
I did. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you often win?
Yeah, what's the biggest
I've
badge
had,
of honor you've had here?
9 altogether.
Wow.
And I've won 7.
Wow.
Yeah.
Don't fight Fantwan.
I know.
Or your
Don't
friend.
do not listen. Yeah, she's not here anymore. It's okay.
I think.
Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm gonna back the Muay Thai fighter. They have a broader range of skills.
It's they fight with their knee, right? They
And
jump
elbows.
with their knee, and
And they can kick.
Looks scary.
What's the I'm gonna ask this question on behalf of people who don't box. Except
Yeah.
apart from the adrenaline you get from this kind of really intensive training hours, what's the high? What's the sense of pleasure that you get out of sparring or competing in a real fight?
I suppose is striving for. This sounds super corny, I know, but bear with me. It's striving for excellence. So not so much reaching it itself, but just trying to pursue it, which I like. The fact that there is a constant sense of trying to improve, measuring your capabilities with other people is, I think, I guess you find that in all sports, but that's something that particularly resonates with me and boxing.
And this is going to be a stupider question than the last one. Do you get a stronger fighting will if you don't like your opponent?
Oh, goodness.
Do you know what? That's not a stupid question.
Wow.
That's a good question, I think. So it doesn't happen often, but there have been a couple of times when I've sparred with someone who I'm not the biggest fan of.
Yeah.
And I found that instead of trying to win, I'm a bit more obsessed with trying to hurt. And that takes me out of my zone. It takes me out of the flow. It doesn't let me execute the skills that I feel I've
So
practiced.
is that
over
why
and over.
professional boxers seem to try to agitate each other so that they don't perform as well?
In my opinion, right, professional boxing is kind of halfway in the entertainment industry, halfway in the sporting industry. And I guess naturally wanting to draw bigger audiences, get bigger crowds, get bigger gate fees, bigger pay-per-views, etc. You have to
Put on a
kind of force a narrative. And that narrative might be, you said this to me, I'm going to say this to you as a... Yeah, so kind of pretending that there's a hatred that might not actually be there.
They go out for drinks later.
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of the time, right? Like straight after one of these big, like high value fights, straight afterwards they're hugging each other and shaking each other's hand and stuff. In the amateur boxing side of life, I don't think there's a need for it.
If you lose, you lose. Just walk off.
Just
go.
Just get your DD and go home and
Well, let's just switch gears a little bit. You're also a DJ.
Yeah.
So is this something you did back
yeah.
at home or you picked up here?
Yeah. So I took way more of an interest in it when I came to China. Back in the UK, always like heavily involved in music. When I was back in London, it was more the acoustic side of stuff. I played bass for a few years and kind of dabbled in quite a few bands and stuff. And when I first came to China, that was something I was looking to continue. But my interest in electronic music grew more and more. And I suppose the medium I wanted to creatively express myself changed. So instead of a bass, it was a set of decks. And
So how do you you're playing other people's music mostly?
Yeah.
How do you insert yourself into that process?
Yeah,
what does the DJ actually do?
So
Ignorant people.
Very-
No.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Not a silly question at all. So I've always had a thing for like acquiring music, like buying, downloading from like a really young age, like 11, 12. And anyone who knows anything about downloading music, that might not necessarily be the most legal way, but for a long time, that was the only way to do it. So I've always kind of had hard drives worth of music. And so naturally, just keeping up that hobby, I suppose, you obviously want to kind of share some of your finds with an audience. And so compiling a list, okay, it depends. So like I have a radio show, right? And it's like every month, not interviews or talking or anything like this, but just releasing a mix. And essentially what I want to do is find everything that I found recently. And
Showcase the highlights.
Yeah. But I'm not sure how pretentious this sounds, but let's go with it. I want to kind of build a mood, essentially. The idea that I have behind making a mix, is kind of creating a journey And if you kind of have a graph on the x-axis, you have time, and I suppose on the y-axis you have like energy, feel, mood, and I try and kind of explore as many of them as possible while seamlessly connecting them together. Yeah.
What type of electronic music?
So being from the UK, I
Drum
try
bass.
to be no, not quite. I want my signature sound to be UK garage. Garage is kind of an evolution from a form of house music
I see.
that was really popular in New York in the 80s. And then came over to the UK in the early 90s, kind of sped up, became very bass heavy. And if you know anything about grime? No? Okay.
To your disappointment.
This is all good. Grime is kind of like an evolution of that. In drill, which has become really popular recently, it's kind of an evolution of grime. But basically UKG is like a very strong proponent of UK electronic music. And I want to try and be the signature source of that sound
Here
in Beijing.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you do perform in front of crowds. I have seen that in addition to your radio show. So when you do that, do you ever, because of the mood of the people that you are performing with, change your selection based on the mood that they're giving you back?
I mean, I guess when I started playing to bigger crowds, I was always trying to imagine what it'd be like and then make a very specific list according to that. And it worked sometimes, but other times it didn't. And I suppose I just had to kind of grow a confidence in my improvisation, selection, like on the spot. So like choosing sounds that, you know, you haven't really decided beforehand. So yeah, I will pick a track based on how I feel the crowd.
So
wants to
it
listen.
is kind of some interaction with the crowd.
Yeah.
It's kind of like comedy.
Oh yeah.
Can imagine, yeah.
Could you elaborate?
Well, it's if we're doing a paid show, open mics are different. Open mics, we just go on and do whatever we want. That's why it's free. But for paid shows, we do want to have, an organization or order to the jokes that we're going to tell. And usually we have a better idea if we go into the room or we're performing on the later spots so that we can see how people react to what kind of materials. And we will adjust our set according to that. But then the thing that resonates the most is that it just doesn't always work. You would watch the other comedians perform. You're like, oh, today's audience will probably react to these things better. Or this is how I'm going to change. I'm going to tell this first and that last. And then they just sit there and go, haha. So
You see.
eventually just got to be, just got to have a really thick skin. And just this is my set. If you don't like it,
This is why
go somewhere
most
else.
people could never. This is why I don't have a problem with public speaking. I actually love it. You say, "Oh, we need you to give a speech about something." It's like, "Give me the mic. I'm ready to go up there." But like comedy, oh my gosh, that is terrifying.
We recently started doing this very mini workshop thing with two other comics, just the three of us, a casual Friday night beer, and we talk about our sets. We talk about comedy in general, and I asked them about, if really I get feedback from the audience saying that we've heard this joke or we're not surprised by this joke. What do you do? What should I do? And one of the comedians with more experience said, just have different audience. Just change to different audience. I was like, that's a great advice.
Wow.
I'll take it.
It takes the pressure off of you. You just have some people who are not so fun.
Yes, it's their fault, not mine.
Do you ever, question for you, right? Do you ever find that like in the audience, obviously it's full of loads of people and you're not trying to address every individual person. Do you find that like some members of the audience are like a lightning rod for the rest? So you're kind of choosing specific people and using them as a gauge for the whole room.
I think the best way to answer that is that I can't really choose one person to gauge the whole room, but I can choose this one person to make the whole room a little bit more lively. There is a target. I did a show on the rooftop a couple of weeks ago, and I felt really bad because I was doing a joke about, how people were having farewell parties, people leaving. I was doing a joke about having farewell parties where people leaving China and we're going to all these events. And I did a quick little survey. I said, hey, is any foreigner in this room that is going to leave? And this one gentleman, I felt so bad for him because we didn't have enough chairs. And he was already on the shorter end of of a guy, and he was sitting on in a just extremely tiny chair. So when I look at the audience, I look at lines, and when it gets to him, there's a dent, and I could see him so clearly. And when I asked that question, he was the only person that raised his hand. For that entire set, I was just dogging this person out. People loved it. People loved it, and I had a really good performance that day. I mean, after the show, I went to shake his hand and thank him for being a good sport.
How did he react?
He loved it. He enjoyed it. But that's not a safe bet. Not everybody's going to,
Yeah.
I mean, I joked on. It's funny enough. We had another. Gentleman, also from the UK, on the show, and I actually joked about him and his wife at one of my comedy shows. I didn't know it was him. I hope he didn't feel offended, but
He didn't mention that to me.
He said that. He said, "Oh, I remember you."
I mean, he didn't mention the being offended part.
Yeah.
He remembered being in your audience.
I want people to come back to me and be like, "Hey, Alex, I loved your show." Just like, I don't know. I always go to the DJ when I go out if it's really good.
Yeah.
If I really feel the mood of the night. My boyfriend more often would just go up to the DJ and say, "Hey, man, you know the whole bro thing."
Yeah.
Do you get people coming up begging requests and stuff like that?
No.
No.
I guess
The Shield.
the clubs that I play in usually, there is an etiquette not to do that. Yeah.
I feel like it's hard to request music if you're at a kind of an like electronic music event.
Yeah.
Jason's
You see it in the movies?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I actually came to see you a couple times. I was doing a bit about you a couple of years ago. Could you tell us a specific memory of DJing or tell us about how you felt, what did it look like that you remember that stands out and is inspiring for you as a DJ?
So there's a moment that happened. When was it? Yeah, it was this year actually. Earlier this year, like March, I think. And to anyone who is kind of in the electronic music scene, I guess, in China, they would know that there's a pretty famous club called Tag in Chengdu.
Jason looked at me as if I should know about that place.
In Chengdu.
Just nod and
In
smile.
Chengdu.
In Chengdu, yeah.
It was a different city. Okay.
Yeah, it's a different city. And the first time I went, I can remember thinking to myself that, like, if I ever get asked to play here, that would be, I don't know, a little personal achievement for me. And so, lo and behold, I actually get asked to play there, which is cool. Great. And then I can remember 10 minutes before I played, I don't want to say it was nervousness. Maybe it was. But I kind of already resigned to the fact that it wasn't going to go well. Which was,
how did you? What gave you that kind of?
I don't know what it was. Do you know? Now that I've said this out loud, I think it's something I do, like psychologically, where it's kind of like
Self-sabotage?
maybe. No, it's kind of an ethos. I suppose it's prepare for the worst, hope for the
Like
best.
stoicism.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. And so I was kind of just obviously looking forward to playing, but then just kind of
Lowered.
accepting the idea that it might not go well. And so anyways, I start the show and then like the first song just goes off and I was like, okay, this is nice. This is cool. Let's see how the next hour and a half goes.
Oh my
But
god!
it went really well from like start to finish. It was like really good. The club owner was really, really pleased. Loads of people asked me for like where they can find more mixes of mine and stuff. A few like weeks later, I randomly decided to look myself up on Weibo. Randomly, honestly, it was randomly. And I found that like there was quite a lot of footage from that event from different people, which is cool. But the idea was that, that was easily like one of the highlights.
Do you actually sell like mixed, Nugget, they make cassette tapes here in Beijing. There's a place called Nugget. Do you?
Yeah. I've put
We
an
could go
event
and get your
on there
mixes.
actually. Yeah, I guess you wouldn't really sell mixes. if you like produced your own tracks, then I think you're more licensed to
I see what you're
to
saying.
distribute your stuff.
Right.
But if you're a DJ and you're essentially playing other people's music and you're selling that, it's
Sell a piece of paper with a list of music on it.
yeah, basically, exactly.
Yeah.
If you want it to be extra, you can add some hyperlinks, but yeah, a DJ doesn't. Yeah,
it's not, you can't really sell it for money, but I have another friend who's also a DJ, also a gentleman from the UK.
okay, I wonder if I know them.
Mr. John Riley. I don't know if you know him.
Maybe his DJ name. Anyways,
Well,
So many
connected.
DJs.
I know.
too many DJs actually.
He has found a way to use his mixes for some, monetary savings, if you will. Because on my birthday, he didn't give me a gift. He just sent me a mix that he said, "This is Alex's birthday mix." I'm like, okay, John, that's
John Cusack movie.
And
or
then
something.
and then later on at a barbecue, John said, "Oh, here's the music that we're gonna use for today." And I said, "John, that's the same mix that you did for my birthday. That's not,
It wasn't custom to me after all.
Exactly.
Okay, well, he's giving me an idea now for what to do for birthday gifts.
Don't
in
do
the
that to your
future.
girlfriend. You'll get yourself in trouble."
But you like the
again.
same mix last year.
A lot of people I know in Beijing, especially foreigners, they're it's impossible to travel outside of China and then back into China, and you did it. Could
did,
you walk
yeah.
us through that
Wow.
process?
Yeah.
Like, what was?
Yeah.
Why did you? What was it necessary to do it, and how much did it cost? And what was the airport like?
Good question. Just to add to that, I can remember like having like a leaving party before I left.
Goodbye.
I didn't even really
Forever.
organize it,
Yeah,
to be
because
honest.
that's what people
And
do.
everyone was like kind of convinced that like, haha, you think you're coming back, huh? Yeah, best of luck with that. And it was like, no, I actually plan on coming back.
Yeah.
No. So I haven't moved all my stuff out of my apartment. So it is definitely possible for sure. It's a bit elongated, a bit more of a process, but as long as you know what you need to do before you do it, then
So you just researched everything very carefully.
yeah. I kind of made the decision to go home in 2021. I guess like a lot of people, they made travel plans in 2020. Kind of, delayed them to 2021. Anyways,
Yep.
decided to finally go back in 2022. So I left at the end of May. And the flight going out of China wasn't that complicated, actually. Just a PCR test. I think it was 24 hours before you left. And then coming back to China, there were multiple ways to do it, actually. And to be honest, I guess this summer, there are obviously restrictions, but it's become much less restricted than around this time last year.
You needed to quarantine somewhere.
I did, yeah.
And how many days was that?
Yeah. My quarantine was 10 days, and that was in Tianjin.
How many mixes came out of that quarantine?
Good question. Prior to that, I was in Hong Kong though, so that's how I came back. So it was Hong Kong to Tianjin, Tianjin to Beijing. Yeah.
Wow. And once you got to Beijing, did you need to do a 3-day home quarantine or anything?
So no. The idea is
Once you're finished in Tianjin.
Yeah, the 7+3 is if you're 7 days are in Beijing. But as I was outside of Beijing, my 10 days.
10 days
were-
and you could come into
Yeah.
Beijing.
Yeah, I moved from Wuhan to Beijing this year, just a
In
few months
August.
ago. Yeah, July, August. Yeah, somewhere. I
July.
can't
Oh,
remember.
okay.
But I needed to do a COVID test 3 days. Once the first day, once the second day, once the third day. Once that was done, then I was just like everybody else. So there was no quarantine whatsoever. Traveling between cities at that time because both of those cities were like
Very
okay,
safe.
just right in that window. I was like, yay!
Insane.
You work with a not-for-profit.
Indeed.
And I was wondering, this is about sustainability education.
Correct.
So
yeah.
I made some guesses about what that
Yeah,
means.
yeah,
but
yeah,
could
yeah.
you fill us in?
So to kind of rewind and go to the oil and gas stuff that I did before, I've always aspired to work in energy. And even when I was in the UK, I was kind of volunteering at a renewable energy startup. And so this is kind of a continuation of that, basically. Now, this organization, Keru, shout outs to Keru, that's Keru. They essentially go to different schools around the country, rural areas in particular, and sort of recycling practices, trying to discourage fast fashion, some mental
We did
health
an
stuff.
episode about fast fashion.
Oh, cool.
It's
cool.
it's terrible.
Yeah.
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 There was just like thousands of acres covered with people's shirts in other like developing countries.
Well, yeah. I suppose like you can draw some confidence that it looks like there is some policy that's being put in place to stop that from happening. But with Keru, I do the renewable energy tech stuff, particularly solar panels.
Nice.
So
You promote solar panel use in
So trying
rural
to-
villages. Am I understanding that correctly?
kind of, it's with high school kids and basically the science behind how it works.
So you teach the children?
Yeah.
So you come in and you're like,
yeah.
this is how green energy works.
This is how you
Yeah.
could get energy from your rooftop.
Yeah.
This is how you could save money if your family installs this
This is
kind
how
of
you
technology.
develop your own projects, essentially. The idea is for a lot of these high school kids that plan on to go to university and do engineering and other science-based stuff. And this is kind of like a practical insight into how they can actually apply some of the skills they get from engineering. Because I can remember...
So this is for them to develop a career
Yeah,
around.
I suppose you could say that. Yeah. I can remember, I guess geology not so much, but a lot of like science-based university courses can easily get lost in the theoretical side. And
Of course.
I think this gives people the opportunity to, just see the practicals.
Is there a website?
There is, yeah. Keru.com.
How do you spell that again?
KERU.
.com.
What's the
Yeah.
the
And they
meaning
accept
behind
donation.
it?
Where does the sorry? Go
Do you
ahead.
know, I should know this.
meaning
I
of
think
Keru?
it's, I think the name is Japanese. I think.
But
I should
so
know
where do
this,
they get
but-
their income? Is this donation based?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
people
yeah.
could go to this website and give a donation to help develop
Indeed,
green
yeah.
energy technology
Yeah,
and
yeah.
careers for young people in China.
Indeed, yeah. It's definitely worth checking out. It's just like a kind of feel-good project as well. And I'd love to be able to take this to other parts of the world, ideally.
So you
That'd be cool.
literally go outside of Beijing to rural
The
villages?
programs that I've done, a lot of them have been online. Unfortunately, we did have quite a few programs in mind to deliver this year and last year, but the travel restrictions unfortunately stopped us from doing that. But with the tools that we have at the moment, we're still fighting the good fight, still pushing the project forward. which is,
And another thing, switching gears again, there's so much to cover with you because you do so many different things. You are now playing bass in a band. Is that how we would
you
describe
could
them?
say that, yeah.
Called Phenomenon.
Phenomena. Yeah.
Oh,
Shout
okay.
outs to Leo. So he's the owner, I suppose, the runner of a club in Beijing called BBB.
The old hot cat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Fangzhou Hutong.
Can I tell a story about BBB really
Yes,
fast?
Yeah.
please.
This is pertaining to my wife.
Okay.
So we were doing a vlog about Fonto. I was actually writing an article about Fonto at the same time. So I was stalking him all
Okay.
over Beijing.
Yeah.
And we went there, and it was before the crowd showed up. He was just still getting his gear set up and stuff.
Yeah.
By the way, I got some really great photos of you. If you want them with those TVs in the background.
Oh, thank
We
you.
took like
Yeah.
100 photos.
Please do.
So there was no one dancing at the time because it was early doors. We came
Yeah.
in super early. And so I gave my wife 300 RMB to dance. So she stands up in the middle of this
Wow,
little
you paid
club.
your wife to dance at the
Just
party.
not like
thought you were just
not
really
dirty
confused.
dancing.
I was confused for a second.
Not dirty dancing, just dancing. And so she just stood in the middle of this club with all these lights and some music playing, and she just went at it for like 5 minutes. She was just totally all over it, like crazy.
I would love to see
appreciate
that
it.
side up somewhere.
I've got pictures as proof that this happened. It was very surreal.
Okay.
accident.
Okay. You took away the magic from that by saying that it was paid for, but I'm joking. It's all good. It's all good.
Well,
no
yeah,
worries.
no one was dancing, and I was like, "Okay, you go dance." And she's like, "No," and I was like, "I'll get
300 bucks.
R&B of my," because she gives me an allowance. This is true story. I think I've mentioned this before.
So you sacrifice your own
So I
money.
sacrificed some of my allowance back to her so that she would go dancing because I thought it would make fun pictures.
And we're going to see those
much
pictures.
appreciated. Indeed.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
If
Can
this
you
episode-
remind me when this was?
This was in BBB,
Yeah.
and this was 2000. 21 spring, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, because
Okay.
At the time, the two ladies from our kindergarten came in. Yasmin
I remember.
and Ashley came in.
Yep,
They were
yep,
hanging right
yep,
around
yep,
you.
Yep, yeah.
Yeah.
This was my good friend James's event.
So your friend in Phenomenon works at BBB? Or
Yeah,
owns
yeah,
BBB?
yeah. And it started off this whole phenomena thing. It was kind of like a throwback to events he did when he was in Italy. Anyone who knows BBB, it's kind of, in the electronic music space. And this phenomena idea was to kind of complement that, but with acoustic instruments. So we had a sax player, a trombone player, someone on keyboards.
What kind of music?
So it's kind of like, I want to say classic house music.
Classic house
Wow.
with
Yeah.
acoustic and horns.
Yeah, but instead covered with, acoustic instruments.
I'm really interested. When you have your show,
Yeah,
coming
we
up,
would
make
love
sure
to
you
go
let us
see
know.
it.
I've got to see this. It sounds very
for
experimental.
sure. Like all the times that it's being carried out, it gets a really good reception, actually. And the idea, hopefully, would be to do it more and more, and not necessarily kind of in an addition to an event, but it could be like the event itself.
its own, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it seems like you're doing a lot. There's one question I like to ask all my guests, and it's not what's your favorite Chinese food.
Okay.
But what would you tell people who are curious about China and they have maybe a mainstream media sort of perception of what China's like? What is China like to you versus what maybe you see in Western media portrayed about
Good
China?
question. Now, obviously, going back to the UK, I found myself having to answer those questions a lot.
Yeah.
I can remember having like this long conversation with one of my friends back home, and obviously the question was like, what are people like in China? How are they compared to people in the UK? Blah, blah, blah. And then, in my opinion, people are people for the most of it. There are way more similarities between cultures than there are differences. Obviously, there are differences, and I suppose some of them are big, but there's way more stuff to base a common appreciation for things than there are differences. So off the back of that, it's way easier to start a conversation with people because you're more likely to find at least one thing you have in common with them than something that's going to divide you. I might need a... what was the question again? Sorry, I'm going off tangent, aren't I?
What would you like to... let's put it a different way. Someone's considering, hey, I might want to move to China or go visit there. But, maybe they're hesitant because some of their perceptions are controlled narratives a little bit by news. What would you want them to know that they might not be aware of?
Oh, okay. A good question.
Your cousin saying, hey, I'm thinking about coming to Beijing. What would you tell him?
I would say just do it. Just give it a try. Like not one source of information is going to truly reflect what actually happens there. Like the strongest opinion really can only be formed from your own experience, I guess. And off the back of that, give it a try.
Yeah.
You might not like it, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. At least you can say that you've tried it. And, there are hundreds, in fact, thousands, I'm sure, thousands of positive experiences of foreigners who have spent an extended amount of time here. You at the beginning of the show, I think it was not before the show, at the beginning of the show, you mentioned that you had originally moved to China thinking you're going to live here for 6 months. Yeah.
You're 5 years on.
Yeah.
And you went home and came back.
Yeah.
What's the future hold? Are you planning on staying here a couple more years?
I can remember after that short period,
Yeah.
my idea was always to cap it at 5. And in a few months, I'm going to reach that magic number.
Decision time.
Decision time, yeah. Yeah. There's other parts of the world that I'd like to explore. That I'd like to spend an extended amount of time in. I haven't decided 100% yet where that's going to be, but that's what the future's looking like. The non-for-profit that I'm working with, I'd like to continue working with them.
Are they
Maybe-
global?
No, they're mainly based in China, but I'd like to, if I'm not working with them directly in another country, then at least pushing that idea of sustainability practices. That's something that is a space I want to continue working in, basically.
So
Yeah.
could you expand on the not-for-profit work a little bit? So it's not just about solar panels. You say
It's not just about
it's
solar.
related to in your mind somehow to geology, to
Yeah,
oil.
yeah.
So could you expand on that?
So I guess like obviously I did geology to work in oil and gas. Oil and gas obviously is like a key resource for making stuff, but fueling
Plastics.
society.
Yeah, so many different things come from petrol. Yeah.
Now I can remember on my time off working for this renewable energy company was kind of like the good side of energy, I suppose. Still in the same space, but just a bit more ethical. And that's something that I continue to pursue, something I want to continue doing. Don't want to go back into oil and gas as much, but the future does look greener. People are adopting more sustainability practices into how they run their companies, how they run their businesses. So there is a big space for it. I know it might not seem like that, but people are more keen.
I do a lot of shows about it. Maybe you don't know this. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I found there was some technology coming out of mushroom growth in Yunnan
That's
that
news to
actually
me. I
grows
did not know that,
on
actually.
plastic,
Yeah, I think
consumes
we talked
plastic,
about
and
this
turns
very
it into
briefly.
biodegradable material. So there are all kinds of potential future options for dealing with the mess that we're making now.
Yeah.
Cool. I saw something, I think it was yesterday, about a farm in America that are using solar panels in a kind of like something to do with like fruit farming, but it's like a kind of one. I'm not explaining it super well, but either way, I've seen it practiced in agriculture. And when you see it on a small scale, it kind of just gives you confidence that on a much larger scale, there is room for. Yeah.
Sometimes it feels bleak.
Yeah.
I actually got to talk with this gentleman, Eric Solheim.
Okay.
He's the former Undersecretary of the United Nations for the Environment. And he, by the time I finished talking to him, I felt there was hope and that there will still be an Earth to live on for people in the future. Yeah.
I suppose like naturally news will always kind of
Gravitate
towards stuff that's not so positive. But
green energy is taking off in China. There's a lot of
Yeah.
solar panels,
Yeah,
wind energy,
yeah.
hydropower. How do you feel about those? Is there
I guess like the largest producer for the equipment is China. So on a manufacturing base, this is the place to be, I suppose.
Yeah.
And there are policies, I guess, the Green Deal or the Climate Accord, China in a way is the leader of that.
Yeah.
I didn't know
And
this.
so, after other countries decided to withdraw. So you do get a sense that this is one of the places to be to see that stuff championed.
So you mentioned wanting to spend time in other parts of the world. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Where in the world?
Who are the contenders?
Yeah, instead of what is it? What is it? Where's Waldo? Where's Wally? Where will we find you in 5 or 10 years?
We'll probably go back to Europe for at least a few months. And then September, I'm thinking potentially Taiwan, maybe. Yeah. Now it just seems like a part of the world that...
You speak Mandarin.
Yeah, I just want to continue practicing, basically. Yeah.
Making the things that I know still useful for different destinations.
Are you
Indeed.
still studying? Because when I talked to you a year ago, you were pretty studying regularly. Are you still studying Mandarin frequently?
I suppose not on a kind of student-teacher basis, but I do find myself practicing like all the time. Sometimes it might only be 5-10 minutes, but either way, there's like a continuous...
If you learn one new word, you've learned a new word.
Yeah.
And then that day you will be
Even
making
just
sentences with that new word.
even just the podcast, just having that in the background.
We do want to have our audience follow up with you, learn more about you. So could you tell us a little bit about, you were talking before the show about your name.
Oh, good question.
So it has apparently different meanings in different contexts.
I suppose,
Fantwan.
in my case, it's 3 names that all sound super similar. and not everyone knows which one's the real one. But
Except you.
Yeah. Funto is the real name. In fact, that's a shortened version of my name, Oluwa Funto, which is a Nigerian name. The last 5 letters of that is Funto. And in high school, I had the nickname Fantwan. And I came to China and trying to think of a Chinese name, right? And someone said the direct translation of your name, Funto, is Fang Tian Ci.
What?
Like Fang Tian Ci, like came from the sky. Because Funto means God has given me this child to look after, right?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's beautiful.
And so I was rolling with that name, Fang Tian Ci, for like a while. Then I realized it sounds kind of arrogant. It sounds a bit pompous to say that you came from the sky and introduce yourself as that.
King.
Yeah. So kind of decided on a new one. And then considering how close Fantwan is to Fantwan, I was like, just roll with Fantwan.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Fantwan, for our listeners who don't speak Mandarin Chinese, means rice balls.
It does. Yeah. And so there have been plenty of times when I've kind of introduced myself to somebody on WeChat and they see me expecting to see like a cute Chinese girl. But instead it's not quite what matches their idea of what a Fantwan.
I had the same issue with my Chinese name, Shangguan Jiewan. I was like, a lot of people, they use the last sound. So it would be Van. So I was like, I asked my wife, can I be Fantwan? She's like, no, that's a girl's name.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Indeed, thanks for having me.
It's an amazing interview. You do so many different things.
Indeed, yeah. It's been awesome. In fact, I've got training in a couple of hours that I need to get to. So I'm glad I did this first.
This will give you some thoughts as well. Maybe there's be some philosophical reflection.
Maybe, yeah. Could say that, exactly.
From your routine.
All right, and we'll see you next time.
Indeed.
Lovely having you.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.